Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian and homeschool mom. And in this video, I'm going to be reviewing a book called Evelyn. So this is a companion to the film Evelyn that I'm going to be covering on Friday. As I do, if I find a book, I'll often review it if it's age appropriate to an extent. There are certain things like I think I covered the film A 1,000-Step Journey, because for Asian American History Month. I did not cover the book because it would have been no interest to my target audience, which is homeschooling parents and children. So on to this. This is a memoir about Evelyn Doyle and her recalling her life as her father tried to basically, and this is true events, fought the Irish Supreme Court to have her and her 5 brothers return to him after their mother left. So she's an adult when she's retelling this, but she's retelling it in third person. So this is her memoir of it. And it's very interesting to see. Again, this is the here, I have to double check the Wikipedia page. It's the 1950s. So it's the events of the story happen between the autumn of 1954 until December of 55. So in the Irish Republic, which, beware, it was very, very Catholic back then, which had to do why the children were taken away. Their mother left per the law, which of course was impacted by the Catholic Church. Her father could not raise them alone because the mother was not dead. So the children were taken into care of the church and the state. Why the father had he voluntarily slightly turned them over because he needed somebody to look after them, and he didn't have any money when he went to England to earn money. He was a painter, as in a house painter, not an artistic painter. He painted buildings. So, and I believe the indoors homes. So in this story, basically, Evan and her 5 brothers are sent to one convent. She's sent to another. Separation of boys and girls. This was very common when a parent abandoned the family. Not necessarily, they wouldn't necessarily take them if, say, the parent died, but if, say, one of them left, or of course, in general, these were orphanages. So most of them, these were orphaned children. They did not have parents. But there were also these children who had been taken away from their parents for various neglect, abuse, or in some cases of Evelyn, her mother left. Now, again, in looking over the Wikipedia page, apparently there was some controversy, and her father was an alcoholic. He may have beat the children. In Evelyn's mind, this was normal for the times, and she was probably right. But again, the film, and even Evelyn herself in her memoirs, do not depict her father this way. So I'm going to be covering the book. Again, these are her memories. She does remember, I think, according to the Wikipedia page, that she admitted that her father was, he could be violent. So, at the times, which unfortunately was, again, pretty normal. And as Evelyn, I think, recounts, I think she's like, husbands beating wives and being drunks and kind of beating their kids was normal. But again, that's not how she remembers him or she depicts him in this memoir. So through this memoir, basically, per Evelyn's recounting, and yes, there's a cat meowing at the door. My calico is not with me right now. I don't know if that's her. I think that's Abby, who's our black one. Moving on. Her parents do not have a good relationship. There's a lot of shouting. Her mother obviously has depression. Her father seems very loving. At one point in time, her father comes back. He's working in England. He's trying to earn money. They're very, very poor. They're living in a small, what we in the United States would call tenement apartments. So, or the projects. So the Irish, it's not a great situation. It's very enclosed. It's very small. They're living in a tiny apartment. It's not great. They're very, very poor. So, and essentially, I know there's I read this book in parts. I just finished it. Mom nearly accidentally kills her kids. Her mother definitely seems very, very depressed. And Evelyn frequently has to look after her children. The neighbor frequently looked after the young boys. Because of course Evelyn's a bit older. She's, I think, about 10, 11 during the course of these events. I can't remember. I don't know if she even states her age. But the day after, one Boxing Day, or I think either Christmas Day or Boxing, the day after, the 26th of December, Evelyn remembers her mother calmly leaving with her lover. So she woke up her father. They try to chase after them. Mom disappears. So, and I believe her mother goes to London. Her mother goes to England, and her father obviously is very poor. Evelyn's maternal grandmother, her mother's mother, he goes and yells at her. It's like, what's going on? Where the heck she go? Again, they're Catholic. There's no divorce kind of thing. Mother-in-law yells at her. She thinks he's a horrible father. She reports him to child services. Eventually, they come and take the kids. Basically, they're promising to give them back once he comes back, because he's going off back to London to work. And so, actually, I believe her mother goes to Scotland. Her mom goes to Scotland. And then might have ended up in England. In England later. But, again, the kids are taken away. The boys are put in a boys' home. Evelyn's put in a convent orphanage with nuns. And mostly it focuses on her, because that's what their case is. Dad come back. He can't get his kids back. He ends up hooking up with a couple very important lawyers who think this is a very interesting case to take to court, because this is very common. He seems to have a good case, but it's like, you have to clean yourself up. You have to stop drinking. You have to straighten up and fly right. And you have to get somebody to take care of the kids. So he ends up with this Protestant housekeeper that he had met in England. She leaves everything, comes to stay with him. Sorry, it's allergy season. And both my husband and my daughter have been sick today. So, with allergy issues. So, moving on. And so he's trying to set up a home. And he frequently visits Evelyn. Him and father will frequently visit the boys. But as they're fighting through this case. And again, Evelyn is recounting this case probably, obviously, years later, because she recounts it in third person of what's going on, of things that she would not have seen. So her father talking to lawyers and what's going on. Again, she's in the convent. She also relates what's going on with her life in the convent. And as this goes on, basically, Child Protection Act, they're arguing that they shouldn't be able to, whether the Constitution means parents, as in both parents, which is again what they're demanding. The wife the kid's mother has to come back or sign her rights away, which again, he doesn't know where the heck she is. She's left the country, and wants nothing to do with him. I think in real life she visits her daughter, and I think even in the book, her mother comes to visit her daughter once, and then leaves and never comes back. And again, she doesn't really have her father doesn't have contact with her, so the mother's not willing to sign over rights to basically grant her husband custody of the children. I don't know if she just doesn't care anymore. It's very possible she was abused so badly that she just gave up and she ran away. And again, she probably has some form of depression. They just didn't recognize it. This is the 50s, the 1950s. So, and it's Ireland. And, even in the U.S., women's rights weren't strong yet. Not, at least in the mental health. They were still fighting. So, it goes through the court. They eventually end up at the Irish Supreme Court. And they're arguing. Desmond and his father actually at one point in time go to the library and read through the Irish Constitution. They find something about children's rights. they bring this up. The opposite side frequently offers to release Evelyn to Doyle with the contention that they can take her back at any time. They never offer to return the boys, so he always turns them down. Obviously, the courts are getting, his lawyers tell them it's like they're getting scared because when they bring up the children's rights, it's very weird. That eventually brings Evelyn having the judges question Evelyn and what she wants, because again, the court case focuses on her, not her brothers. Just because I think they just wanted a general focus, and that is the real court case. It names her, not necessarily her brothers, or her brothers through overturning the Children's Act would be released as well. So they're just focusing on one kid, and because she's the oldest. So the younger boys are still very, very young. In fact, one of them was still a baby, a toddler at the time of this. So he doesn't really remember. The younger boys, by this time, they barely remember living at their home because it's been over a year. So they talk to her. She kind of fibs to a point because they ask her about her new mother, essentially, the housekeeper, and I don't know if Doyle ever actually remarries her, but she's posing as she's acting as his wife. So, again, I think they probably got he probably got a separation order from the church for abandonment. His wife disappeared. So, and that I believe is something they would grant, and they may eventually grant divorce over a time period, because again, on the grounds of abandonment, so he could remarry. So, she doesn't particularly like this woman very much because she misses her own mother. And this woman is Protestant, which again is brought up because this is very Catholic Ireland at the time, in 1950s. So that's brought up. People will occasionally insult her on that, and she doesn't allow it to get to her. But Evelyn doesn't. She wants to go. She tells him she wants to go home to her father and her brothers, not necessarily her new mother, which I believe they call her Mammy. It's spelled Mammy. So not the Southern Mammy, though it might be related. Moving on. And they eventually rule in her favor, or in her father's favor. And she's able to, this happens the next day. So she comes in, gives her testimony privately to the judges. She's not in open court. So this is privately to the judges where they're asking her questions based on, is this in her interest? Because her father's lawyer brought up her rights, the child's rights. And does she have the right to go back home if she so wants? And of course she says, yes, I want to go back to live with my father and my brothers. I just don't, she just kind of bites her tongue on whether she wants to live with the new stepmother. So, and the stepmother isn't mean to her or anything. It's just this woman is new, and she just doesn't quite get along very well with her stepmother, just because she's a preteen girl. This is a different woman who's planning on taking care of her brothers when she was taking care of her brothers beforehand. So, and it was more, you're a stranger, I don't know you very well, kind of thing. So, it overturns, and that's kind of how it ends. Basically, she goes home, and her father comes to pick her up at the convent that day, and right before Christmas. It does mention that she grows up, she moves to Scotland, she gets married, she becomes first a nurse, and then becomes a police officer. So, and there's some debate on if her mother was abused, and some of the children remember mother running out after being beaten and stuff like that. But I'm focusing specifically on this book. Now, I read this after I've seen the film. So there is a lot of contrast in the film. One, she only has like 2 brothers in the film. It's like 2 or 3 in the film. So it doesn't really show her father having to leave. Her grandfather dies in the film. In the book, he does not. In real life, he's still around. There's The new mother figure is very much Irish, and she's the one who introduces him to the lawyers. And again, that's not in the film, or that's not in the book, really. I think he runs into he knows a friend, so somebody else. And that's how they gets rolling. Again, the lawyers were doing it pro bono. So it is, the other thing I think that's different is they present in the film, they have the main lawyer is an observer, and he's retired. In the book, in the real life, it's not the case. They do have an American who practices law in Ireland, though, again, he was born in Ireland and he grew up in the United States. But they fudge some of the details. They have Evelyn giving her testimony in open court, which, again, she doesn't. So, and they make it seem far more magical, of course, than it was in real life. And even Evelyn herself, it seems, fudges the details. Now, that could be her own memory. It could be her just wanting to present her father in a better light because she might be close to her dad. So it doesn't, at the end of the film, of course, they have to have a whole family Christmas thing where the boys are home, Evelyn's home, everything is happy. In the book, again, she ends her memoirs here with basically her father just picking her up. Her brothers aren't in it quite as much because they were very, very young, and she's focusing a lot on this court case, which revolved around her and her father. And that's really what the focus of the book is. It's very, very interesting. It's a look at Irish law. It's a look at life in the convent. The other big difference is she's not miserable in the convent, as opposed to in the film, they have to have some sort of bad guy in the convent. In the book, in real life, there wasn't. She was happy. The nuns were nice. They weren't really cruel or anything, at least in how she recounts. Again, this is a memoir, so this is what I would consider a primary source, because this is a person recounting her own life. So, is it perfect? No. But again, any more than any other primary source, which is like letters and their documentation, she's recounting her life as she chooses to present it. So, and how she wants it presented to the world, because the film is actually based on this book. But again, it is very, very interesting. It's a good look at kind of how the dynamics work, the poverty of 1950s Ireland, how the Catholic Church was very much involved in the law, though I'm not familiar enough with Irish law, which is based on British common law, which is the same base for American common law. Oddly enough, they do bring up the United States Constitution in their court presentations, because the Irish Constitution apparently is based on the American Constitution, which makes sense because Ireland didn't get its independence until after the United States became a country. In fact, I don't think it got its independence until the 1920s. So this wasn't that long ago for them. But so they actually bring that up in the book and in the court case, that they're basically I can't remember what article they bring it up, which of course I think one of the it's part of the Bill of Rights. So, and they bring that up because the Irish Constitution is based off the U.S. Constitution. So that's brought up. But again, it's a really good look at least from this girl's point of view, her life in 1950s Ireland, and how the Catholic Church affected family dynamics and how that works and what goes on in the court case, and a look at this personalized look at this very important court case in Ireland that set a precedent for children not being able to being taken away from their parents just for the fact that the parents become single. So that's essentially what they're arguing. That's what the precedent they set. In the film, they have them like all the kids can go home now, which isn't exactly true. Again, they were fighting one specific case. Their A lot of the families would probably have to bring this up themselves, and there was probably a lot more arguing, more details. But this is Evelyn's recounts of this event within this year, of her year or so of her life, of how she ended up in the convent. Her father ended up having a case before the Irish Supreme Court, arguing that him and his daughter had the right to be a family without her mother present, and that he was a good father. And who are we to judge? Again, it's the 1950s. Was it right for her father to beat her mother? Of course not. Was he probably an alcoholic? Yeah. But again, this is Evelyn's opinion, and unfortunately it was very normal, and it was not unusual for the times. So we don't want to take this out of history. This happened in the 1950s. Would we be supporting Desmond Doyle now if he were an alcoholic who beat his wife? No, this was a completely different, that would be a completely different story. But of course, the film also has the very charming Pierce Brosnan in it. And yeah, you can't dislike Brosnan. So, but again, this is a very interesting film based on a very, very interesting case. For homeschoolers, if you're looking at this time period, if you're looking at Irish history, particularly modern, I would consider modern Irish history, because again, this is the 1950s, so this is 19th century. This is 20th century Irish history. If you're looking at laws in different countries, family law in different countries, you're just looking for a memoir set in this time period, or a memoir in Ireland. If you're going through Irish history, this is a good book to read. Again, it's I have a bachelor's degree in history, so this is what we would consider a primary source, because it's in this case, Evelyn Doyle recounting from her own memory and in her own words what happened during this period in her life. So this is her story, and how she was told what was going on, and how she understood this. Again, she's recounting it as an adult, but this is in her own words. So, fantastic book, very, very interesting. Great read. Again, I have an ebook copy, and I actually bought it because it's not that expensive. So, great book. If you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. I do books like this. I am covering the film, which I did months ago. This is being filmed in November 18th of 2022. So you guys will be seeing this in a couple of months. Hopefully my office still looks like this. I've been cleaning and painting lately, so the floor looks slightly disastrous. I need a vacuum in here. But we just finished painting our main living space, our living room, has vaulted ceilings. That was fun. So, but hopefully the office still looks in condition. It varies. So, but I do cover a lot of other children's stuff coming this year. I'm covering the Princess Diaries, which should be going on now. I'll be covering 2 series of Tamora Pierce, the Lioness Rampant. The Song of the Lioness and the Immortals Quartet. I covered the Circle books. I covered both quartets. If you're familiar with Tamora Pierce, I covered both quartets and The Will of the Empress previously. You can check those out. I'm covering the Guardians of Ga'Hoole. That's going to come after Tamora Pierce. That will literally flow into fall. And then I'll be going back to Meg Cabot and then Catherine Lasky as well at the end of the year. So I haven't actually read any of those. Princess Diaries and the Diary of the Tamora Pierce and the Guardians of Ga'Hoole are up and ready to go. So the Princess Diaries should be going on now. Everything else by now it's up and ready to go. So we will run as scheduled. I cover a variety of other different things, children's picture books. I have a whole stack of music stuff, and I'm covering immunizations this year. I'm covering LGBTQ plus stories this year. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a positive comment if you have one, and check out what I've got. Thank you.